Hello and welcome to the Final Corner podcast. And this week we're going to be discussing the Oulton Park rounds of the 2025 British Touring Car Championship season. I'm Tom and joined once again by Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
And sadly, we are not joined by our fellow BTCC fanboy and Scott, our Scottish man on the ground in Scotland, Colin, who is on holiday in Canada. Very nice.
Yeah, he's in Canada.
In Canada, yep. Oh man, stumbled the intro there. Brilliant. Let's press on. That is a taste of things to come for this particular episode because it's
Oh,
until
yes.
you start talking you don't realize how much of a consummate professional Mr. Barr is.
Indeed. He does keep things ticking over nicely.
He really does. It's really difficult. So I forgot to get my Alton Park track map up. And while we do that, let's discuss the news.
News update.
Well, just quickly, this is another one where you had to use the hard and the soft as opposed to the soft and the medium on the tires. Nick, you had to put it in Chat GPT's the rules, did you?
Yeah, to work out which ones it was.
Ugh,
But yeah, there'll be one more this season, which is the next round at Croft. And then after that, it is soft to mediums for the rest of the season.
wonderful. I quite enjoyed it at Thruxton where there was no tire compound shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Here, the hard didn't seem too much of a disadvantage if you're called Tom Ingram, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Yes.
There was also a driver change as well.
Yeah, Ronan Pearson having to sit out this round, he says, and the team says. I'm hoping that is all that it is. I can't remember the exact wording they said, but it was commercial interests or something along those lines. So he just
Considerations or something, yeah.
basically didn't have the money. But yeah,
Bit of a shame because he's second season in a row. He's well, at least missed on this instance one round. It's not very clear. I have a feeling that it was out for the rest of the season, but then David Addison in the commentaries did say something at one point like, "Oh, potentially the one round." So who really knows? I suppose if you find the sponsors, you could always come back, but it's going to be very difficult to do so
yeah, because the first couple of races, at least, he was the standout of the Toyotas.
by a
Um,
significant margin.
yeah, so the others, with the exception of Aaron Taylor Smith, who hasn't had the best season, unfortunately for him, have all sort of done something with the car. But we did get Finn Leslie, who was someone I wasn't familiar with before this, but
Same.
he's come from TCR UK, and he has quite a good record. In juniors, in the Fiestas, he's done quite well. But he actually impressed me quite a lot considering he just jumped in the car.
Yes, no test session because there's no. You can't test in between rounds of BTCC, I believe. You can do a little shakedown, but that's just an airfield run to get your
Mm.
driving position in and make sure you know what the buttons do. So
Yeah.
and the car's working. So you're right. Yeah, no standout fireworks performance, but he was on the pace. He wasn't
Mm.
last, so that was very impressive. And also, he and James Dolan did one of the most awkward interviews I've ever seen.
Yeah.
When Louise and Tim were walking up the pit lane, it was shown during the qualifying. And then, oh, we've got a new driver, Finn Leslie, come across, and James Dolan walked across.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Uh, well worth checking out on the YouTube replay if you can.
Yes. I just love the fact as well that it was awkward, first of all. So then Harvey goes off to get Finn Leslie, leaving Louise to interview James Dorling just while he's there. And then when they get the driver they wanted to speak to out, James Dorling just continues to stand there and just looks really awkward.
Yeah, oh, it's awkward. But fair play for Louise for thinking on the spot and interviewing James Dolan a bit. And I
Mm.
suppose Dolan got some exposure for his sponsors. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
another Toyota driver who's shown flashes of brilliance. And he did explain actually in that interview that in Thruxton, when he was up there, he had a technical issue which prevented him and helped contribute towards him dropping back. It wasn't a
Mm.
driver thing.
Yeah.
So good insight. The other bit of news, two more. One is was known before this round, and one was top secret and is very controversial. So the most controversial one is Steve Ryder. No, that's not it. Steve Ryder. This was his final round, retiring from presenting an institution, part of the fabric of the British Touring Car Championship, right from the BBC days and through
Mm.
to the current ITV era. And this was his final round mid-season.
Yeah. It's amazing when they showed all the clips and everything of how much he has done
Oh,
in
Olympics,
yeah,
Champions League final.
every sport and every event he must have covered at some point. And yeah, his voice is just one that that I've heard all throughout my life. Um,
Yes.
so it's going to be weird not having him there. Um, his replacement, Nikki Shields, who I know primarily from watching Goodwood.
Ah,
I've
okay.
seen her presenting that quite a lot. She does present Formula E. I don't know if she still does, but she did.
No, I don't think
Um,
so. Well, not the
she was
coverage
pit
that I
lane
watch
reporter, was
anyway.
she?
Yes. But I have seen her on Formula E. Yeah.
Hmm. And she seems quite professional. She seems very good. She's got a lot of experience and she loves cars, so that's all a good thing. But anyone replacing Steve Ryan, especially mid-season, is just not going to be as good, sadly. But I'm sure we'll get used to it.
Yes, I also know from she did some Extreme E work as well.
All right.
Uh, I think after Jenny Gow had a stroke, maybe she was
Mm-hmm.
a stand-in there as, and I think she did some work on F1 Academy. She might have done some commentary on that at some point. Oh, I can't remember
Possibly.
if it was last year or the start of this season. And also, I watch a YouTube channel called Electrifying, or electrifying.com, I think it's a website. They have a YouTube channel where they
Mm.
review electric cars. She does the occasional contribution to that, and she's very good at that. So,
Mm.
what we can say is she's an excellent presenter, and she's very knowledgeable and has covered cars and motorsport. But for all we know, a newbie to BTCC, but we don't know behind the scenes how much research she's been doing, and she might be following it. So going in with an open mind, I do think she's a really great presenter. I do think
Mm.
Steve Ryder's role is quite tricky because it's not just presenting. He does a bit of interviewing the drivers, doesn't he, for like the grid draw.
Yeah,
He does a lot of plug-in, stand-in bits that you don't realize because he's so seamless. It just sort of fits in.
exactly. Yeah, he does knit it all together, doesn't he?
Yes, it's a very difficult job, actually. I think what he does.
Mm.
Um, so kudos for Steve. Thank you very much. Also, best of luck, Nikki, and we'll see how it goes. And I wouldn't be surprised if it takes a couple of rounds to get up to speed, as well as us getting used to her as an audience.
Yeah.
But hey, I think he's allowed a retirement, so all good.
Yes, definitely.
Cushy gig though, wasn't it? Like 10 events a year. It's a tricky job, but
Oh yeah,
that is
but
perfect, isn't it? As you get older,
he did
10
make it
events a
look
year.
easy.
Yeah, exactly. So now on to the contentious one, which is a great article on Autosport by the supreme Marcus Simmons, the best and maybe only full-time BTC journalist. He also writes other stuff in the world. So he's on autosport.com here, and the headline is BTCC to close rules loophole in time for Croft. Mounting of flat floor on Hyundais called into question at Oulton. So this is a kind of controversy that we haven't seen in BTCC for a while. It's obvious that the Hyundais and the Fords, at least, seem to have an apparent advantage, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Subjective. We don't have all the stats and data. But then when you watch Ingram fend off someone on soft tires when he's on hards, who's a really champion, you sort of think, hmm. And there's some onboard clips which we'll touch upon later that I think indicate a straight line speed advantage. Do I think a flat floor is, providing all the advantage? No, I don't think I do. But there was, let's be described as a grey area in the
Yeah,
rules. Alan Gow says we've clarified that grey area now, and the car was actually never illegal. But we're changing them. Or we're making them
yeah.
change it for Croft. Thoughts?
It's a strange one because when I was reading the article as well, I believe the floors, or is it the floor or the splitter? I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but they have to be flat, and it was, but it's something to do with the mounting of it, is where the issue
Yes.
is. So it's not the controversy is not that the floor is flat, I should point out, is that they have to be. So there's no aerodynamic advantage, but something that was being done with the mounting was off from the regulations.
Yeah, there's a quote here from Anthony Williams, who is described as the Accelerate chief.
Mm.
And he says there are two rules in conflict. And the direct quote, which doesn't make it clear at all, no, I'm not bagging on Marcus Simmons, but it's the quote he's got to work with, and it might be something that they don't want to make made public here,
Yeah,
obviously. So he's done something with what he's got,
Mhm.
and it says here it's more just around the method of adjustment ultimately. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means, but Marcus does describe it in the little excerpt as mounting of flat floor. So it's the mounting of it. Yeah,
It's very
interesting.
strange. Not that I think it is this at all, but the way it's worded almost makes it sound like they can adjust it on the fly. But I don't think it would be that. That sounds far too
Yeah.
in depth, and I think they would be thrown out if it was something like that.
Yeah, and my first thought, which is probably wrong as well, is that does the splitter actually extend really far back to create like a flat floor, and is it not supposed to be? Uh,
Possibly, yeah.
you know, like one that's like covered beneath
Yes,
the
that's
engine
what
and
you mean.
stuff. Yeah, off or further back, and does that count under mounting? Oh, we've
Mm.
mounted it too long. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all a bit bizarre, and the, it's written as if. Sorry, I shouldn't say written. I should mean the quotes are saying that there was nothing wrong by the team, nothing illegal. Um, I can't remember if it says no performance gain. I don't think it says anything
Well,
like that,
let me have a look at that while you
but yeah, it's definitely strange to have it closed off mid-season if there is no advantage. And the fact that Alan Gow in particular keeps mentioning that it's nothing illegal, nothing they shouldn't be doing, but then why are they stopping it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's odd, but it's the smoke and mirrors that I love that we've not seen in the BTCC for a while.
Mhm,
Because a common complaint over the last time, how long have we had these NGTC rules now? Well, over a decade. That all the cars are the same. Well, actually, there are many common parts, but there are many parts not covered in the rules, which the teams can and
Yes.
have and will develop. Lighter. The Hyundai had a lighter boot lid to try and redistribute the weight last season, for example,
Hmm.
and obviously it's got a different trick here because, as Marcus says, this has been an upgrade only on the Accelerate Run cars for this season. The two
Hmm.
Hyundais by Restart Racing that were built by Accelerate apparently do not have this. I'm going to say upgrade, air quotes.
Hmm.
And you mentioned there about performance update. It's just paddock insiders doubt they will have a significant effect on the performance of the Hyundais. That's the line.
Yeah.
So it's not, yeah, it's not coming from Accelerate. All the BTC is that. That's Marcus's sources.
Mhm.
One source outwardly is Jake Hill, who
Yes.
says, "I've got no problem with Tom as a person," which almost sounds like he was asked, "You got a problem with Tom?" I don't
Yeah.
think he was. It's part of a quote. I've got no problem with Tom as a person, and he's a great driver. But for me, it's like bringing a water pistol to World War III.
Yeah. It. I mean, clearly that Accelerate Hyundai is extremely quick in a straight line. Um, but I just I don't know how it gets so quick. I'm not saying there's anything funny going on, but
No,
I'm more to do with the parity between the cars. I feel like Toka should be providing a bit more boost to some teams, maybe. I don't know. It just feels like in previous years they've made more efforts to equalize performance, or at least we've seen more efforts.
yeah, we the last BTC episode we did on the podcast, we cited Jake Hill, who said, "I don't know if Tucker are going to listen to this, but probably nothing. I'll probably
Mm,
do nothing." Gordon Shedden said multiple times in interviews that he's just losing. We know where the disadvantages of the Toyota. We're just losing straight line coming out of a corner. So acceleration,
yeah.
not necessarily top speed, but getting to that top speed quicker.
Hmm.
There's a graphic demonstration, in my opinion. If you watch, and you can do this on YouTube, the races. If you're outside the UK or on the BTCC YouTube channel, right? But if you're
Hmm.
in the UK on the ITV Sport YouTube channel, they've uploaded the full races in 1 2 hour video. You go to the start of race two, the final corner, which is Lodge. Sutton is on soft tyres. Ingram is on hards. You'd think Sutton would have a grip advantage because he does. Coming out the corner, you might think he has better traction. I think he has a better run and a better line because Ingram's slightly defensive. Coming out immediately after the apex, Sutton kind of nearly has an overlap, but by the start finish line, Ingram's got 2 or 3 car lengths on him, and you can just see it on board, like he's just pulling away.
Hmm.
And again, coming out of Old Hall down the avenue, where there's a clear straight line advantage in my, again, subjective opinion, but watch it back, go on
Yeah.
YouTube, let me know what you think.
And we don't think there was boost being used at that point either, do we?
No, the graphic is on screen and there is
Hmm.
no, it is not
Yeah.
flashing green.
They've clearly done a good job with that car, though.
Oh yeah, listen, and you play to the rules. Well,
Mhm.
maybe the splitter's a bit awry, but certainly on the engine, Swindon Powertrain work on that. If it's an engine advantage, which we think it is, then they've done an amazing job of how it delivers the power and torque, and when it
Yeah.
does, and matching that with when the car's got grip and the diff settings, presumably. So kudos. It's very clear that if you look at most qualifying sessions and race results, the Hyundais across the board are very, very competitive with the
Mhm.
Fords. And we forgot to mention that Ingram, with the second least amount of boost, got pole position in qualifying,
Yes,
which is
by a
wild.
mile.
Yes. So he is an amazing driver at the top of his game, and his engineer is on top of things as well. So it feels like we're taking away things while we're speculating here. But clearly within the paddock, people are angry.
But yeah, I mean, what we need is Plato back. He was the king of moaning until things got changed.
Yes, well, Jake Hill's taking up the mantle at the minute.
Yeah. Speaking of which, it was interesting to see Plato.
Yes,
I don't know if you spotted the interview they had with, well, not interview, where they had Matt Neal, Jason Plato, and Colin Turkington in the
very,
studio.
very brief interview, wasn't it? I felt like Turkington
Mhm.
played down his chances of returning. Don't know what you thought.
Yes, I thought so as well. But yeah, it was interesting. I still love the dynamic between Neil and Plato, where Plato says, "Oh, we're actually really good mates," and then Neil sort of gives him a look as if to say, "Sometimes."
Yeah, yeah, when we're on TV, and we have to be. Yes, yeah, interesting. Always a shame, I think, that Neil didn't get to say that, oh, I'm retiring.
Oh yeah, didn't get like a final season,
So,
did he?
yeah, Plato got that, but Neil didn't.
Hmm.
And well, the same with Turkington potentially if he can't find a way back in. Always tangential here, but this is a Final Corner podcast
Yep, that's what you're
where
here for.
exactly. Clearly, Turkington was paid and had extra funding by BMW to be in the championship.
Oh
And
yeah,
then he
he
said
said
multiple
as well.
times, yeah, he said it like, oh, once a BMW funding stopped, then, I'm not on the grid anymore. And yet for years on, I think it was 10 tenths forum, someone
Mm.
would say, oh, no one's been paid by a manufacturer in this series. And someone would say, oh, well, Turkington is, for example. And they'd be like, no, 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 nonsense, nonsense. He's paying for it all himself. And obviously
Yeah.
that was utter nonsense. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't have personal sponsors, but
Oh no,
anyway,
it was subsidized, is how I would describe it. Yeah.
good way of putting it. Right.
Mm.
That big news section, and there's a lot to talk about in the racing and qualifying as well. So we'll rattle through it as quick as we can. But on to qualifying. So we already briefly mentioned it, kind of spoiled it because I got a bit confused as to where we were in the order of the show there. But Ingram got pole
Mm.
by, oh, is that five? That's half a second.
It was, yeah, I think it was something like 489 or something like that. It was just under half a second, which in touring cars is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean Sutton's done an amazing job to get fourth with the least amount of boost as championship leader.
Yeah.
But Ingram's another level again. Chris Smiley, who I think was quickest in the practice sessions and was looking very
Hmm.
rapid through the session. I thought he was going to get pole, but he still an amazing result in second, I thought.
Yeah. That was really good. And clearly, the Hyundai is working for everyone, but he has the advantage of more boost compared to the other
Yes.
Hyundai drivers in Morgan, and I believe Chilton as well had reduced boost, but I might be wrong on that. But it's still brilliant to put it up there. And Dan Lloyd as well was on the pace as well. I think he was second in his group,
Yeah.
but then was excluded after failing ride height due to, I believe they said it was an exhaust bracket came loose.
Yeah, the exhaust are mounted on the side, so he failed the
Hmm.
ride height test on the side. So obviously the car was actually perfectly legal, I believe, in terms
Hmm.
of ride height, but the roller wouldn't go under where the exhaust had fallen down him.
Yeah, which
So,
is unfortunate, but that, as he said as well, that's the rules.
yep.
He's not getting an advantage out of it, but if it can't go under it, that's it.
We mentioned him earlier as an awkward interview, but that clearly powered him forward and motivated him because Dorling was once again the superior Toyota driver,
Mm.
like he was in Thruxton. Fifth place is a staggering result, really, considering I thought.
Yeah, he seems to be getting something out of that car that no one else does. And I was wondering actually, in terms of the fact that he is a rookie to the championship, if that's actually helping him. He doesn't have any preconceptions of how the car should behave.
Yes, because we've changed weight distributions and overall car weight, haven't we, this year without the hybrid?
Yeah, because Taylor Smith is really struggling. Shedden's been really struggling. And obviously Pearson was better, and he only had a year in the car before that, I think, or nearly a year. Um, so I do wonder if there's something to do with it, if driving in a different way to other cut drivers.
Yeah, and on a similar level, Charles Rainford, top BMW in ninth.
Hmm. Yeah,
Another
same.
great result. But on the flip side, Josh Cook in eighth is fine.
Yeah,
Again, every episode we're like, come on, he should be fighting with the Fords and Hyundais, but is he the top non-Ford or Hyundai? I know because Dolin is, but
yeah.
second in class, we could say, if we're being a bit harsh. Um, Proctor in 10th. Mikey Double a bit under the radar this time because Double and Cook are the ones that are consistently sort of the next best and
Yeah,
a little subdued from Double this time.
yeah, it was unfortunate. I think the qualifying was a little bit hit and miss for some drivers as well, wasn't it?
I just want to flag that Robottom third in the championship was down in 15th.
Yes.
Hill, the reigning champion, 13th. Second, BMW.
Yeah, where was the other ones?
16th, De
Moffat.
Leon
Yeah.
and Moffat, very under the radar. Well, not really doing much here in 18th.
Mm,
And Finn Leslie was 21st, which all. Oh, and finally, we should say that last on the grid, behind Dan Lloyd, who's excluded, it is confusing. Gordon Shedden, 9 seconds off the pace in qualifying. Wow, he's lost it. No, he was actually a bit quicker than that. Although I don't think he set a time good enough to get out of the first part of qualifying, sadly, because every single time lap he did, apart from the installation lap of the fresh tyres at the start, hence the time difference,
mm,
was over track limits. And the many drivers were robbed of their best times for track limits all through the session, as they are in every British touring car session in this day and age. However,
yes.
in this particular one, oh, it was like 5 or 6 laps in a row he set, and they were all removed, which
Yeah.
is frustrating because there's either the driver's not understood where the track limits are, or no one's telling him on the radio where they were, or they didn't do the track walk correct earlier in the week.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it seems a bit
Fundamental
excessive.
breakdown there.
I would, you would think there would be a banker in there somewhere. One of the
Yes,
six, you'd be like, okay, just set a lap. I don't care how good it is, just get me somewhere in the middle of the grid, if not. But yeah, every single one. Well, I think the two places in particular were the exit of Lodge and the exit of Old Hall were the
yes,
main.
and
Oh,
maybe the exit of
and
Cascades.
Cascades, yes.
Yep, yeah. Hmm. Certainly, the usual touring car line is at Old Hall. Yeah, you go over the red and white bit, and then there's like a green concrete bit as well, and you
Yes.
use all of that. But that
Mhm.
touching the green is a violation, I think,
Yes, I
which is
believe
very
that is how it
MotoGP.
works now. And
Yeah,
I don't like it. It's
no,
design the tracks to the limits or to the limits of the tracks. If that bit of concrete's there, let them use it. If it's not,
yeah,
if, just put a bit of gravel or something. I always feel like it should be policed by itself. If you go wide, you get punished because you are slower, not you make more time.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, with qualifying wrapped up, it's on to race 1 of 3. Most people are on the soft here, apart from Shedden, who's starting last on hard. Robot and Osborne, and Doble tries his trick again on the hard, which he did at Snetterton successfully. Although there he qualified much higher up, and here
Yeah.
it didn't work out ultimately. I don't think a very subdued weekend,
Hmm.
and we have to do another formation lap because Finn Leslie has an issue on the hill, lined up towards the back of the grid, which means that I think Hamilton's out of position, and Gordon Shedden was about to start the race, almost touching the back of Hamilton's bumper. So thank goodness it was called off.
Oh yes, because yeah, because Leslie had stopped basically in Hamilton's grid slot, I believe.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
so.
Not purposely. I think that's just where the car conked out. But it was a drive shaft issue as well. It wasn't
Yeah,
driver issue.
yeah.
And he did get back in the race as well. He lost 2 laps, but it was quite important for him to get out there and get that time behind the wheel.
Yeah, very true. And if they've done a drive shaft change in that, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it just depends if it was changed or I'm not mechanically minded, but I don't know if it can be put back in if it's come loose or I've no idea. But yeah, it seems a very quick turnaround for something like that.
On to the race start itself for real this time. And Ingram, well, keeps his pole position, converts that into a lead off the line. Smiley a bit tardy, though. All the
Mm.
talk pre-race was, "Oh yeah, I'm going to win. I'm going to try and win it. Oh, we can try and win it." But you've got to nail the start. So that didn't quite work, which meant he got immediately overtaken by Camish, I think. And
Mhm.
then Sutton went round the outside of Cascades on cold tyres. Impressive. And Smiley could have given him a bit of a rub, I thought. But
Yeah, I think
it's
the
kind of fair what happened. So
where Camish was, I think gave a bit of a helping hand. Don't think deliberately, but I think Camish had the inside, so Smiley couldn't sort of push on a bit more because he would have been going into the back of Camish. So that gave Sutton the opportunity to go around the outside for me.
Yeah, fair enough. We all see in the first lap Cook making some moves around the outside of Dorlin into his lops, which is a good move you can do around there. Sometimes it can be a bit risky, but that was
Yeah.
solid. Good progress early on. I think at that point it becomes best of class two.
Yes. Because there's quite a few little moves going on into the Hislops, which is good, but it does compromise other cars as well.
Yeah, and in this instance, Rainford was a bit balked, wasn't he, with the
Hmm.
Dorlin Cook move, and Proctor moved up a position there. And actually, he fell down behind Aaron Taylor Smith and Hill in that process.
Yeah. And then we get the first of the weekend of De Leon trying to go through someone.
Yeah, this is bad form. I think, on the one hand, slightly unfortunate that he's got the camera car because maybe this happens more often than we
That's a
realise.
good point.
He's in the middle of the pack, isn't he? He's right fighting with like 15th, 14th place. I think he just
Uh,
drives into the back of Osborne at Cascades first of all.
yeah. It's
Uh,
This particular one, I didn't mind so much because I think it was an unfortunate thing of Osborne turning in a little bit while he's trying to get the inside. I'm not saying it wasn't De Leon's fault, it was, but I can sort of see how they've come together there. It was the fact that he ended up pushing him off and just drove away.
yes, very much so. Anyway, because then Osborne is further back in the pack, you've got is it Osborne, Rowbottom, and Jelly are side by side coming out of
It
the
is.
hairpin. Now you can get three cars there, and I think what Jelly does is quite opportunistic and quite good because he uses a bit of the inside curb and a slightly different angle in the middle of the corner to get a narrow exit. He is alongside, and if you watch it back, because now we can watch the races back quickly on YouTube in slow
Hmm.
motion.
Yeah.
Osborne turns into him. Sorry, in my opinion, a little bit. Not on when they make contact, they are driving in a straight line together. But before
Mm.
that, just as they come out of the corner, Osborne he's got a car width to his left, and he decides to
Yeah.
take an extra sharp line and then moves right again. Then a few seconds later, they collide. Osborne speared off into the barriers, but does continue. Jelly spins around. I think it's very fortunate not to be collected by Hamilton and
Mm.
Halstead. He's facing the wrong way. It takes him a while to recover, sadly.
Oh, yeah. I was the other way, to be honest. I thought it was Jelly going over the front of Osborne, but I also think it was a racing incident. I don't think there was anyone to blame.
Yeah, fair enough.
They were just very close together. Um, and it was quite amazing that the Osborne's car rejoined so easy because it wasn't a high speed impact, but it made quite a mess of the barriers there.
Yes, now I've got a theory about this. These cars are very rigid,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's been improvements over the years to make them even more so. They seem to take impacts very well in some respects, in terms of you can hit a barrier there and carry on. We saw it with, and we mentioned it in a recent podcast, but with Turkerton at Croft last year with him and Ingram. Actually carried on, and the car was straight. We saw it with
Yeah.
Rainford, which will come to later this weekend, where he hits the barrier and carries on, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Then I actually think, well, we hypothesized that Morgan at Thruxton could have carried on, but he got out of the car. But then when they picked the car up, maybe one of the wheels is a bit
Yeah. We're not
loose.
sure.
But then, and we'll touch upon it in a bit, but Lloyd has a pretty big accident, and actually the car was bent panels, but the car was straight and all the wheels were still on it.
Yeah. I mean, it looked for all the world when it came off the wall there. There was nothing wrong with it almost.
Yeah, and they got him out for race three, and everyone was like, "Oh, we might not get out." But actually, if you look at the wheels, they're all straight. I mean, they might not be perfectly lined, but they're
Yeah.
not hanging off. And I think, again, I don't know if there was a engine warning light or something like this that maybe you could have driven these back to the pits there. The only thing I would say to flip side to this is when a car has impacts like this and doesn't deform,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the energy might go through the driver of the impact.
Yes, definitely.
And that is a slight concern I have with these cars. If someone has a sizable impact into a wall and they damage themselves internally, but not, but the car seems okay.
Yeah.
It's like an old larder; they don't
James
crumple.
Thompson.
Yes, yeah, James. Yes, brought it back around to touring cars. So this causes a safety car because I think also Jelly's facing the wrong way, but he did recover. But then the Recticel barrier release
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, it was only 3 laps, wasn't it? Which is quite good.
Absolutely. So at the safety car restart, there's a bit of people trying to move forward and defend, but the main talking point here is the two limited Cooper Leons clashing on the run down the hill to the Hislop chicane. Patterson does cover it, but not right at the very end. He moves away and gives Hall the space to go through, but then turns in early, I think.
Yeah.
Smacks Hall's left rear, which is a role reversal of the Brands Hatch crash.
I think so, actually, yeah.
Very similar circumstances. This immediately breaks Hall's suspension. This blocks Lloyd temporarily, I think. Drops down positions, and then Hall's out of the race.
Yeah, and that's the amount of times I've watched it, and I still can't decide who I think is more at fault. I think
Mm.
they're both just pushing it too much. I think Hall really, really wanted that inside line, and it wasn't really there, but then it was at the last second, so he's entitled to die for it. But common sense says you probably shouldn't. And Patterson at the same time gives him no room once he has gone for it and just turns in on him. So they're both idiots. Is what I want to say on that.
Speaking of idiots, De Leon's in the back of double.
Yep.
Just drives straight into him. It's a very Plato-esque move, this.
Yes.
Plato once drove into the back of Tom Onslow Cole, and after that hairpin, Plato was in a Chevy and Onslow Cole in a Ford. And Plato said something in a post-race interview, and I'm paraphrasing because it's many years ago now, like, oh, I'll just give a little bit of an overtake, and then Onslow Cole interrupted him, and oh, it was a crash.
Yeah. That's the thing. You can drive into the back of someone and nudge them. It's
Don't
not
take the
good
position.
racing, but that was a ram.
It absolutely was. Yeah. Also, we should note at this point, Lloyd's, making his way up, did good progress through the field after his start down at the back. We've got an
Yeah.
incident where Dorlin cuts the chicane after Cook he's fully alongside him.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a tricky one.
yeah, and then he rejoins and Cook doesn't know which way to go and loses a lot of momentum there. In fact, Cook's trying to pass Dorlin for a very long time and he's very clearly quick at all race. Eventually does get it done. But this was a sketchy moment.
Yeah, because the thing is with that is where Dorlin was going around the outside of Cook, and he just decides to go across. And then on the next lap, I think it is, Chilton does the same thing to Morgan. I know they're teammates, but Chilton had roughly the same position as where Dorlin was, but held it out around the outside to claim the position. So I feel like he bowed early, but he is still a rookie, Dorlin, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But he was overtaken, so to me, he should be given that place back.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should have given it back as well, but we've played on in this instance. And it's still good that he's showing a bit of fight against Cook in your first season in touring cars. So then we'll skip forward a few laps. We're back at the hairpin and we're back with De Leon, who's this time ramming the back of Taylor Smith, who then
Yeah.
Taylor Smith spears across the grass and into Moffat, but they both get a reprimand.
Yeah, this is one of those again where De Leon again driving into the back of someone, but in his slight defence, Aaron Taylor Smith does a very late defence to the inside. But it's one of those once again that where for me, De Leon shouldn't have been trying to push that position because it wasn't going to work. And then the fact that he wiped out his own teammate, who did continue but lost places, isn't good.
Nope.
But they both received the same penalty, so.
Yeah, also Moffat has a dangerous rejoin, which is just slightly on the camera, but
Yes,
it's cut
I did
away
see
from.
that.
It pulls right out in front of Doble and Shedden, who have to both check up. That's the battle for the top hard tyre runners. I think actually Rowbottom gets through there ahead of Moffat, and then just parks it in the apex there. Nicely done. It's very difficult to see though, so there's that, and there wasn't contact at least. So De Leon. We should say, I can't remember if we said, but the only penalty he gets in terms of race time is 10 seconds with Doble. The other rubs with Osborne and Taylor Smith, no time penalty. But here, yes, we've got a reprimand. So that's a warning or official line on the chart, isn't it? Official reprimand.
Yes.
Plus 2 points on his license. Taylor Smith gets the same penalties for this particular incident. Okay, then eventually Cook does pass Dolling with a classic dive into Old Hall, which is very
Always
nice.
to see.
Someone tries to replicate that move in the second race and doesn't get it right, in my opinion. But there we go. We'll come to that in a bit.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and then we've got a scenario where if you're finishing in the top three of the first race, you have to run the hard tire in the next race. And we know
Hmm.
when it's a hard tire, not the medium, the gap or the delta between the two tire compounds should be rather large, as we saw in uh, Snetterton in particular, where
Yeah.
people like Camish drop right to the back. So Ash Sutton, who's running in a solid third place behind his teammate Camish in second, with Ingram out front, evidently slows down and lets Smiley through. And is it deliberate or not? That's the question at the time.
It definitely was. When watching it at first, I thought, oh, Sutton got a slight issue here. Um, because he definitely, because it was on the last lap this happened, wasn't it? And Sutton did have boost for his last lap, as well as Smiley. So it was like, hmm. And then became clear what he was doing. And it was then confirmed later on when Louise interviewed him on the grid. Well, I say confirmed, where he denied it with a wink.
Yes, but also Smiley's podium interview it wasn't the
Yes,
normal podium cheeriness, was it? It was like,
yes.
oh, Ash just played a game there, but I took it.
Yeah, because I thought that was interesting as well because he said that he basically said he was considering not passing him, but the other cars behind were so close that he thought he would lose more positions if he tried to play that game.
Yes, so they're coming over Hilltop and coming out the hairpin, and Ash is mysteriously slow coming out of the hairpin.
Hmm.
Smiley gets alongside, but you're right. There's Chilton and Morgan are right behind,
Yeah.
and it's actually a dangerous game for Sutton to play really because he could have lost, not finished sixth or mid
Yes.
contact. I mean, he moves right across in front of Chilton at the very last second to defend,
Hmm.
which is another signifier of shenanigans, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure, but then that's the way the rules work. Sadly, I don't
Play the
like
game.
this top three on a hard tire. Um, I still maintain that last year was better when you swapped top 10, I think it was. Might have been 12.
Yes,
I can't remember. I think it was the top 10
a
had to
large
do
number of
the
cars
harder
anyway.
tire.
Yeah.
So at least it made it fairer because at least almost half the grid had that same disadvantage. So you then end up with two races going on. But when it's just three cars that are forced to, that makes it seem so much worse.
I think this is the first time someone's actually deliberately done it, allegedly.
Yeah, that we've seen for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
We definitely
All
saw it before with the old rules, though, didn't we? When it was, oh, should I finish 10th? Should I finish 11th? We
oh
have seen
yes.
it then, but for this set of rules, yes.
Also, we have the Kidderminster kerfuffle, which is now we're going to stick to its Rowbottom's move at the Seagrave corner at Thruxton. But we
Hmm.
need to look out for Addison alliteration now because he does love that. He always has trim trailing Toyota is his favourite. But he had a
Oh,
new one
yes.
this weekend, or one I've only just picked up on, was Toyota Travails to
Ah,
describe Toyota issues. So we just have to keep our eye out for Addison alliteration for every round henceforth.
I like the fact as well that Addison alliteration is an alliteration. Love that.
Exactly.
Well done, sir.
All good. So at the end of race one, oh, good fact from Nick here. Ingram is now top 10 in all time BTCC wins with
Yes,
35, level with Frank Gardner and one behind Thompson, Muller, and Alain Menu. That is some company.
it is. And I should say the credit is not mine as such. This was a story on the BTCC website that came out today.
Ah, wonderful.
That's how I noticed it. But it's interesting that on the current grid now, we only have three people in that list now.
Shedden, Sutton, and Ingram.
Hmm.
Yes, I don't see Andy Rouse making a comeback somehow.
No, I think he'd still be quick if he did.
Aye, yeah. So Ingram won that. Set the quickest lap as well.
Hmm.
Oh, by 4/10 over someone else, I think.
Yeah, it
Goodness
was
me.
another rapid drive.
Yeah. Camish second, Smiley reluctantly in third, Sutton cleverly in fourth. You got some more Hyundais with Chilton and Morgan. Jake Hill, the best of the rest, in seventh. So he's made good progress there from his starting position.
Yeah, definitely.
Proctor, solid result in eighth. Cook, medium result in ninth. Dolin, still a good result, even though he's dropped down from his qualifying order in 10th.
Hmm.
Rainford 11th, and Lloyd recovering to 12th, which leaves
Which,
us with.
yeah, Hall Watch didn't go well for the second week in a row. Well, not week, second event in a row. Finished effectively last after the contact with Dexter Patterson. 0 points.
Yes, and also I noticed Dexter Patterson also retired from that incident.
Yes, they both did.
So
On
they
the same
wiped each
lap.
other out. Wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah, dear. So on to race 2. And we've got the top 3 having to run on hard tyres. That's Ingram, Camish, and Smiley. Sutton in 4th on the softs. And Sutton's immediately making a great start using that softer compound to his advantage to jump into 2nd place. And
Yeah.
also Morgan immediately gets past Smiley. And then you start thinking, well, hard runners are going to fall back. And in the case of Camish and Smiley, they definitely did.
Yes, Smiley in particular, he dropped very quickly back down the pack.
Absolutely. Sutton is well. Ingram's actually trying to defend for a while. We've already talked about this, where I think you can on this section of the race you can see Ingram's straight line speed advantage. But when the move does come, it's a lovely late dive by Sutton at the hairpin. But then Morgan nearly gets through.
Yeah, yeah, because he's got the run on the pair of them essentially because they're both slowed by it. But yeah, Sutton manages to hold position. There's no point Ingram fighting Morgan because he assumes he's just going to fall backwards, which he doesn't.
You've got a nice note here when watching the race. I'm not going to follow Ingram, Camish, Smiley being overtaken, as what's the point?
Exactly, because I was expecting them all to just drop straight back down, and I thought
Yeah,
I'm not going to
I don't care
pay
about that.
attention to it. But Ingram in particular wasn't really dropping at all.
And we've got some more De Leon contact, haven't we?
Yes, where it was, I think, similar to the Osborne move from the first one, but more of a punt rather than a coming together again.
Hmm.
Um, which gave Dawling a bad exit. So yeah, that was not great once again. And you would think he would have learned after the first race, getting reprimands and penalties, to be a little bit more careful, maybe. I mean, I like De Leon; he's a good racer, but he just seemed angry this weekend. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on there. Also, speaking of clumsiness, Patterson's involved in another incident with Halstead, although we can't see from the angle whose fault it is, but Halstead spears off
Mhm.
into the middle of the chicane, which when you first see that car sat there, I was trying to work out where the heck is that?
Yeah, same.
It's really confusing. But the main incident, which causes an extended safety car period, is Dan Lloyd, and we both believe, driving too much over the curb and then spearing off into the barriers in a very unconventional place, so between Clay Hill and at the water tower.
Mm. Yeah, and I think Tim Harvey in particular was adamant that something broke, but I think because the camera broke up at that point on the onboards, it's very hard to see, but it looks like the majority of the car ended up going over the grass because I think it was Cook was he was trying to pass
Yes.
at that point.
Yep.
Because Harvey said it's not a big curb there, it wouldn't unsettle the car like that. But I think it was just traction on the grass that sent him sliding, and then that's what sent him off personally. But we can't really see. There's no clear camera angles.
There is yeah, there is one from the outside which
Mm.
they show once very briefly or fleetingly, and then they show it again later on in the race. It might be post race, can't remember
Mm.
now, or pre race 3, where you can clearly see in my mind they show the full run up the hill,
Yeah,
an exterior shot, and Cook kind of moves across a bit, but
hmm
Lloyd is on the wrong weird side.
yeah,
So it's unfortunate. It's a racing incident, but the curb just spears him off, or the grass spears him off.
yeah. It
Um,
was what was annoying for me was the fact that Aaron Taylor Smith was just behind them at that point. Because when I first saw it, I thought Aaron Taylor Smith had hit Lloyd just because of where they were on track. Um, but Aaron Taylor Smith had the bonnet cam on this weekend, so I don't know why there was no footage from that we got to see.
so as they go up Clare Hill under the bridge, it's not just Lloyd's camera signal that breaks up; it's all of them, I think.
Yes,
So it might have been so pixelated and rubbish that they had
yeah,
nothing from
that's true. Yeah.
ATS. Yeah, because there was later on, was it
Mm.
on Rowbottom's car or someone one of the Fords, and as they drove up
Yes.
there, the signal cut.
Yeah, exactly the same, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's a tree proximity thing, I suspect, or the bridge that's there that you can walk over, or something cuts the signal
Mm.
out. Because it's unfortunately had 4 camera angles of the Lloyd incident, and just
I
when you
know.
need it.
It was so
Uh,
unfortunate for him, and it is not his track, is it?
no, and obviously you feel really sorry for him because you can hear his live reaction or audio reaction to the incident, and it's like, oh no, 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 and he's got his head
Yeah.
in the visor, and he's probably thinking, "Oh my word, I've written the car off on the damage bill."
Yeah, I think that is exactly what it is. It's not so much, oh no, I've gone off or I'm out of the race. It was, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this again? It's effectively what's going through his head. But as we mentioned earlier, that car is just bulletproof. It's just,
Unbelievable! It's almost like it could have continued in the race, to be honest.
yeah.
But yeah, we already covered that. But
Mm.
just crazy. So anyway, he was able to take part in race 3, and Matt Neal was the one who was interviewed in the pit lane and was correct, we think, on the verdict of what happened in the incident. He's got many fingers in many pies because the Accelerate
Indeed.
cars operate out of his building, don't they? But
Hmm.
then he's employed or has a deal with Restart to work as like a coach or a team mentor or in some overseeing role for that squad.
Yeah.
So he's all in on the Hyundais anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like he was, I could be mistaken, but I feel like he was also driver mentoring someone lower down the grid at some point as well.
Yeah, it might have been.
Like a Nick Houstead, but not necessarily him, but someone like that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's good work if you can get it. So
Yeah.
after the safety car restarts, because we've got a lot of barrier repairs,
Mm.
I think Gordon Shedden goes down to the first corner, Old Hall, tries to relive his youth, where he was in one of the earlier forms of Civic, the model number before the FK8, and he would always dive late on the brakes past everybody
Mm.
and wipes out Rainford. Although, upon reflection, actually, it's a bit of a 50-50 move.
Yeah, I think on first viewing, it's just like, oh, that's not on.
Yeah.
But I do think it was, I wouldn't say a good move, but I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
Yes, there we go.
Rainford makes it a little bit worse.
It's a bit clumsy, but it happens.
Hmm. Yeah,
Rainford spins across the gravel. I think, very easy for us to sit here. I think Rainford slightly overcorrects in the initial point, which then sends him at an odd angle, and then he can't recover it from the grass. Smash into
yeah,
the barriers, but carries on. Like it. That's what Tunline could have done, maybe? No. It was a big hit, so he might not be feeling well. He's also still got issues after he broke his collarbone
oh
or
yes,
shoulder.
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
actually a piece on the BTCC YouTube channel about him recovering from
mm,
that.
also with Lloyd going in that crash when the car also took off, it hit into the air
Mm,
slightly. You
mm.
would just assume that the car's
Of
not
course
going
you would.
anywhere.
Of course you would.
So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very lucky actually. It didn't go higher because then it could have cleared the barrier. Anyway,
oh yeah,
on the Shedden incident as well, if you look very closely afterwards, there's the contact and then Shedden's on the brakes. I think he's like, "Oh no, what's happened here?" And
mm,
do I need to redress the position? Then realizes, okay, he's in the barrier. I'm going to carry on in that split second because he loses a lot of momentum to the cars behind him there. But
yeah,
this is pivotal. This is actually a really good race from Shedden. Aside from it not being the cleanest move, he's on the soft tires.
hmm
You'd think at this point, not necessarily guaranteed because other drivers are on the softs to get into the reverse grid spots, but he actually makes it up by, is it ninth at the end?
yeah. He finishes ninth.
This was his most convincing race yet, I thought. I know, obviously, race 3 is fantastic, but
Mm.
to fight back from where he was on this one, good going.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Croft might be quite interesting for the Toyotas. I got a weird feeling that it will suit them more. But
I have
could be
well,
completely
let's
wrong
see.
there.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, if it's not BMWs at the front, I'd be worried as well.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I'm worried already, but extra worried. We've also got more De Leon action, haven't we? I think.
Yeah. He's just not learning today. Yeah, so because he does a nice pass on James Dawling, through Cascades. So that was quite good. But then I think it was at the hairpin, he then rams the car in front of him again. I'm not even sure who it was this time.
Yeah.
Um, but we immediately see smoke slash steam coming out the front of the car, and Harvey and everyone else watching assumes that he's blown his radiator. But he continues, so it might have been some kind of bodywork damage, but it definitely looked like radiator steam, the way it came out the top and side of the bonnet rather than
Yeah.
wheel arches.
Yeah. It looked terminal, but anyway,
Yeah,
carried on. But still not ideal. The front of the car looks a bit of a mess at one shot later on.
yeah.
We've also got smoke emanating from Proctor's front left, which is very strange. He does seem
Hmm.
to slow down. It's hard to know if they were connected. I think it was, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, I'm assuming it was just bodywork rubbing on the tyre, but
Yeah.
it's not clarified anywhere.
No. And then we've got more smoke as Aaron Taylor Smith pulls off. Seemingly, again, we have to look into it. A significant technical failure.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I actually think he's coming up towards the Dan Lloyd crash zone.
Yeah.
And as he's on the grass, the front axle locks up And at that point, actually, he's not in control. So it looks like, at first glance, oh, he's pulled off just perfectly where there's an opening in the barrier. He's aiming for that. I'm glad he aimed for
Mm,
that as he was going off, because I think at one point he's very definitely not in control anymore.
yeah.
Rainford, for all his efforts, well, it comes to nothing because he's disqualified for overboosting, which is not, we believe, using the boost button too much, but the amount
Yeah.
the engine latently has of boost. So it's a
Hmm.
technical issue, a setup issue, or a failure on the engine there, which is what we had in the last round with Moffat and someone else.
Yes. Seems quite common this year. I think that's the fourth, maybe,
Yep.
disqualification for that, I think.
Not sure what's going on there. And Finn Lindsay gets a verbal warning for contact with Nick Hamilton, which I don't think we saw.
I don't think so, no. I did try
So,
and find it.
so Sutton then returns the serve against Ingram with first place and fastest lap, while
Hmm.
Ingram finishes fourth. So they've both got the same results from these two races here. But what's really key is fourth place on the hard tyres is absolutely wild. When Jake Hill cannot get past Ingram, even though he's on the softs.
Yes, and Ingram was, for me, I shouldn't take anything away from his performance. He's done extremely well, but he was also very lucky that there was a loss of yellow flags out in that race that were preventing, I believe, at different points you couldn't overtake at Old Hall, the hairpin, Lodge,
Yep.
um, and possibly Hislops, but I'm not sure. But there was a lot of places all at once where overtaking couldn't happen for a few laps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he still drove magnificently to stay up in fourth, considering that he was on those horrible tyres.
Well, the people that started around him on the hards, Dan Camish finished 10th,
Yeah.
which is say it's good for Dan Camish on the hard tyre.
Yeah.
But and he was also very nonplussed and said it was a strange race after race one interview.
Hmm.
I'd love to know what he's actually thinking. And yeah, Smiley, like we said earlier, dropped like a stone to 14. Still got in the points, but you've got to try and stay in the top 12 at least, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
But fourth is just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, amazing drive.
Yeah. I
Wonder
mean,
if
he
it's a
was,
splitter. I don't actually think that, but anyway.
what was it? He was 5 seconds behind Chilton, give or take.
Who finished third and Morgan
Yeah.
finished second.
And it's just that 5 seconds behind your teammate on that sort of performance shouldn't be
Yeah.
possible with those tyres.
Rowbottom finishes sixth, so he's done amazing progress because he was on the hard
Yeah.
time race one. He did skip the chicane early on in the race, but we'll let that by.
Yeah.
And so he's got ahead of Cook there, who was also the soft, which is mad.
Hmm.
Proctor managed to finish eighth. Another strong performance with the soft coming forward was Shedden into ninth. And, well, we've already mentioned Camish 10th, but Doble didn't quite have an amazing turnaround getting rid of the hards compared to Rowbottom and Shedden. It's
Yeah.
quite subdued into 11th. And unfortunately, that didn't make his weekend because he did not get drawn from the reverse grid, which leaves us to say from the results of race two.
Max Hall managed to get himself up to 18th. There was a few things where Rainford was disqualified. Aaron Taylor Smith, Halstead, Jelly, and Lloyd didn't finish. But he still finished ahead of his teammate and around the same sort of position as Finn Leslie.
In between race two and race three, we've got the reverse grid draw, which Steve Ryder hosts. But Ash Sutton decided, I don't know if it's pre planned or ITV said to do it, but that Steve Ryder could draw the balls.
Yeah, which he seemed ridiculously happy about. I love that. He
Yeah.
seemed so pleased to be asked to do it.
And unfortunately, made a bit of a faux pas because he called the wrong number. But there you go. He pulled number 9 out and he said, oh, and that puts Dan Camish in pole position when it was Shedden.
Yes.
But someone did correct him in the ears. So we got there in the end. And there was
Yes,
all sorts of confusion with the mics and stuff.
yes, but I love the fact that even though it clearly said on screen that it was Shedden, that you still believed Steve Ryder.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
that point
totally.
he even then said, "Can we get clarification on that, please?"
Amazing.
But yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
also
I
the
enjoyed
fact
that moment.
he took the mickey out of Jake Hill as well because he couldn't reach the balls, and he said, "Now I know how Jake Hill feels."
Oh, I've forgotten what it was, but there was a line earlier on in the week. It was a segue between, I think, coming out of the ads and going down to the grid, and they took the mickey out of someone, but I can't remember who it was now, but he was on good form. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
The shackles were off. So it is Shedden, and he didn't get a penalty for the Rainford incident, and so he's on pole position. In the meantime, it's rained. It actually rained during the grid draw, didn't it? And there were race two interviews.
Yeah.
And the support race in between, I think there was some minis and going around in the rain, and the F4 race was red flagged.
Yes, I didn't watch them, but I was sort of fast forwarding through bits of it, and I could see It was red flagged, I think, to give them a chance to put on the tyres, and then they were running out of time.
Yes, we actually should say that one of the F4 races was won by Thomas Behrman, Ollie Behrman's younger brother.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Nice.
So there's another Behrman on the hunt.
God, there's another Tom.
Yeah. So after those sport races, it's still wet for the touring car races. There is a debate as to which tyres to go on, but everybody is on the wet tyre. That will change later in the race because it's not raining anymore, or not heavily, and
Mm,
the temperatures, the ambient's quite warm. Certainly where I was, which is about an hour and a half away from Oulton, so it doesn't really mean anything. Don't know why I mentioned it. It did rain a bit and then was very warm and dried up almost immediately. So I was
yeah.
expecting something similar here. This is a race I think that Cook could have won but didn't, and whether it's a car issue or he threw it away is debatable. He did say he had a throttle issue after the fact on Instagram, but he
Mm,
locks up going into his lops. But what I would say is his lops was very slippy for everybody.
it was. He wasn't the only one doing that.
And if you look really carefully on that first lap, Shedden misses the apex by a mile as well.
And we should also say as well that Aaron Taylor-Smith and Nick Houston didn't make the start of this race due to damage.
Right.
So
Okay.
we was down to 23 cars.
Good shout. What did you make of Cook's rejoin?
Mm, yeah, it wasn't great.
It gave Hill a position when he didn't necessarily need to, I felt.
No, but I think he compromised them, I think. It wasn't brilliant, but in this sort of weather conditions, you can excuse these things.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know if his side window was missed up or it's hard to see.
Hmm.
So Cook comes back onto the track, but he's behind. He's dropped to second from second to third. Then I think he's trying to defend.
Mm,
It's row bottom. I feel like he changed his line in the braking zone while braking,
yeah.
and the front wheels lock up, and he nearly wipes out Hill.
Yes. It was nearly, as we mentioned before at some point, it was nearly a Matt Neal moment, the classic Neil on Shedden.
Yeah,
It was very reminiscent of that.
Nat's Whisker springs to mind, but he
Yes.
he does get out the gravel trap, but then he's limping around for ages, back in the pits, back out, back in again, and there's a throttle issue from that point on. But it's hard to know what caused the lockups.
Hmm.
I'm going to be sorry, Cook. I'm going to say it's a bit of moving in the braking zone.
Yeah, I think it was his issue as well. A few people just disappeared as well, didn't they? Morgan was out of the race at this point, but I'm not sure why. And Smiley as well pulled off the track.
Yes, he's just pictured, isn't he? Looking lonely there.
Hmm.
We've also got a bit of contact on lap 4 with Proctor and Camish, which could have been bad.
Yes.
Bit of a clumsy move, and that let Sutton through on his teammate, and then straight past Proctor, which is a fantastic move, really. Very opportunistic.
It was, yeah. And once again, with the weather on that one, I think Camish did a nice-ish pass on Proctor, but it was a little bit deep, and I think that's where the contact came. I don't apportion any blame to either of them. I think it was just a result of the weather. But unfortunately for Proctor, that just held him up.
Yep. Absolutely. We've got some shenanigans going on at his laps again, which is very, very slippy on the same lap. So it's lap 4. So the order at this point, before that chicane, is Ingram 7th, Double 8th, De Leon 9th.
Mm.
We're watching some racing. Then we cut to a replay as we're further round the lap, and it's Double slamming into the side of Ingram. Ingram has to go
Yeah.
across this time. Ingram's defense, the wet grass in the middle of the Hyslop chicane area. Spears back on the track, but he's grassing his tyres. He just avoids Doble. De Leon is getting the run around the outside of both of them. It cuts away, and all of a sudden the order is actually Doble up in 7th, Chilton in 8th, Ingram down to 9th, and De Leon down in 14th. So we'll never know what happens there. But there could have been, after the fact the replay cut together, a bit of rubbing between Ingram and De Leon, I think, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, this puts Ingram down to 9th. And at this point in the race, he's struggling a bit by the looks of things.
Yeah, I was expecting him at this point. I wondered if he had some kind of issue because it looked like he was just going to fall further and further down the grid. You mentioned De Leon there, and I think he pitted for slicks the next lap, and that's probably
He did.
because he was off the pace then at that point because of whatever happened. He probably thought it was worth the gamble.
I think if there's been an incident, right, let's gamble it. But it's too early in the race, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He loses the lap as well, so at this point he's
Yeah, disaster.
but
Because
yeah,
I
he might have had
understand.
to pit for damage as well.
Yeah, do you know, part of me was thinking, has he just pitted for damage and there's been a miscommunication that started changing his tyres?
Possibly,
Or it could have been the front's full of grass or something.
yeah. Yeah, it could
Uh,
have been anything like that.
there's another lockup down at that chicane anyway soon after, which is it's Jelly, I think.
Hmm.
He has a bit of a dodgy read join where he slams into the side of hole. Nicely done,
Yeah.
Stephen. But again, it's tricky to see out of there. And yeah, okay. And at this point, we've got Sutton on a charge, and we've got still Shed in the lead. Now he has a gap initially, but then that's eroded over the course of a handful of laps, and
Hmm.
Hill's on him.
Yeah, for pretty much the whole race, isn't he? Yeah, I think Shedden did amazing with his defending in this race because
I
he
agree.
never really defended, if you know what I mean. He wasn't sort of like doing the old Aidan Moffat drive around the inside of the track. He just positioned the car well. He wasn't compromising himself too much.
Yeah, I was sat there waiting for the moment where he locked up and went off, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was nervous for him,
Mm.
which amazing, really. Just all the turmoil he's been through this year and coming back is a big risk with finding the sponsors and the commercial arrangement and risking your reputation and going in a car that you're not. It's been a very long time since he's not driven a Dynamics car.
Yeah.
He has driven for other teams in the past, but yeah, like I say, oh, it might have been Super 2000 era, maybe in a Seat Leon or something.
Yeah, I was
But
thinking that.
also, we should mention that Ingram does cut the chicane, classic Ingram style, gains an advantage.
Yes. That's another one of those for me where I feel like if he hadn't given that place back, I was prepared to go to Oulton myself and find him. It was it was ridiculous, but then he did give the place back, so that's fine. But yeah, he very early on decided he was gonna not even attempt the corner, which is fine to do if you were then redress the balance by giving the place back. But when he rejoined and then shot off up the hill, I was thinking, has he done it again? But he didn't, so we'll let that go.
And at this point, like 6, 7 laps in, Hill is right on the bumper. I mean, literally touching the bumper of Shedden.
Hmm.
And you sort of think, oh, can you defend for another 7 laps?
Yeah, exactly.
Or 8 laps? Ugh. But anyway, then the first stoppage or break, pause, relief for Shedden is a safety car because we just cut to Max Hall being a nuisance.
Yeah, did we see how he got there? I
No.
can't remember. Or did we just saw him in the gravel, didn't we?
No, he's in the gravel and he's at a really odd angle because he's
Yes.
perpendicular to the track. So how does that work?
It's either that he's spun in there or he's been assisted in there. But
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that one.
No, no, we'll never find out. But it is a very strange angle to be in.
Yeah, I mean, because Aidan Moffat and Maxwell both received reprimands, which I believe is for an incident that happened on lap 3, but it could potentially be to do with this.
Hmm.
We don't really know, but yeah, that was the safety car, and it took a few laps for them to drag that car out the gravel.
It did. When we got a restart, and it's a late restart call. First corner. Oh, row bottom side by side with Hill. There's contact, and I thought, well, that's Hill round or in the barrier.
Yeah.
Wasn't, but Sutton makes a move on his teammate. Then almost immediately, there's another safety car, isn't there?
Yes. What was this? Oh, yes. This was Tom Chilton who mistakenly thought that he was Daryl DeLeon and just drives into Doble.
Oh, heavy damage. It's like when
Yeah.
Pearson actually at Thruxton, we didn't see that incident, but the bonnet flies up, doesn't it, immediately?
Yes. And then when I saw the replay, I thought, oh, maybe he can just go through the pits, they tape it down, and then when he pulls in the pits, it's like the whole front of the car is caved in
Oh
completely.
yeah, it's bad. Um,
Yeah.
Double spears across. I'm very lucky not to hit someone else and cause big damage.
Yes.
Across the pack, across the Hislop chicanes, on the wet grass, onto the side, into the barrier,
Mhm.
light contact, but he can't get the car restarted, or it's stuck in the
No.
grass. And then
Yeah, one
game
of
over.
those. And to be fair to Chilton as well, obviously, there's been a lot of restarts, couple of tyres, dodgy conditions. So there is some leeway for it, but it was completely his fault. There's no question of that.
Yeah, he's not tapped from behind or anything. Yeah, there's a replay from the reverse angle. It's just like, bump.
Yeah.
There's another lengthy safety car here. We've also, so then I think we restart with only 3 or 4 laps left, much to Gordon's delight. And it is actually drier by this point. I think, maybe is it Patterson has put slicks on as well.
Patterson pitted during the safety car, so he didn't lose a lap. And he put on, crucially as well, because he had soft tyres. Because even though it's declared a
Yes.
wet race, you still have to use the tyres that you would have had to use if you put slicks on. So De Leon, for instance, had to put a set of hards on, whereas Patterson could put softs on.
Good observation. I'd not noticed that. That's brilliant observation there from Nick Saunders. And we've got more shedding defending, but I think towards the end, Hill's like, oh, I might just save second place. But no, he's still trying. And then he eventually locks up, throws it off, and gives away the podium in the end for trying too hard for the lead, I think.
Yeah, I think he was conscious of not giving that spot away, which is what led to him giving it away.
Yeah, maybe I
'Cause he,
contradicted
he did,
myself there.
oh no, I know exactly what you mean, but yeah, I don't think he wanted to attack Shedden too aggressively because it would leave him
Yes.
vulnerable to the cars behind.
Yes.
Um,
That's an eloquent way of saying what I was trying to say.
yeah, but there was so many cars that had gone off in this time as well because Hamilton was off at Old Hall. Jenny was parked on the run to Ireland, so there was yellow flags on half the track. It felt like at this point, which was really helping some people,
Yes.
namely Thomas Ingram. Is he Thomas? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, he must be on his. Well, who knows? He's officially down as a Tom in the
Yeah, I just
touring cars.
really thought about that. But that helped him because there was a lot of places where he couldn't get overtaken, but also um, all the cars in front of him seemed to be wanting to throw it off the track. So where he had struggled early on and was down in, I think at one point, 11th place in this race, maybe, um, he was gaining places back without having to do too much of the work himself.
Yes, and he did have that slump, and maybe there was that incident early on, but then he's also refound the pace as well as these incidents happening.
Hmm.
So it is a good drive back. Um, but yeah, just Hill. Maybe the frustration gets to him. He's off at Cascades, isn't he? Nearly
Yeah.
loops it, I thought, at one point on the painted curbs. And I thought, oh no. But he finishes seventh. So that gives Sutton and Rowbottom second and third. And at that point, they don't even try and get Shedden. But yeah, Ingram in fourth again with fastest lap.
Yes, well, ish, maybe. I believe he had fastest lap
Okay.
in terms of the point because Patterson had fastest lap.
Yeah, so Patterson actually, I think, recovered up to 12th. He was actually flying through in the slicks.
Mhm.
He set the fastest lap on the TV broadcast, but he's disqualified for failing the ride height check. Now, you probably set your ride height for the wet tyres, which have a larger circumference, don't you?
Yeah,
And then when you put the slicks on, you're probably under the minimum ride height. So it's unfortunate. So, but
yeah,
it ultimately does affect performance.
it does. Now,
And he was flying.
I think that is what happened, but we don't know that. We just know that he failed to ride height. But I
No,
believe that
no.
it's probably quite likely. But yeah, because he set the fastest lap, he would have had the point for it. But because he was disqualified, I don't know if that point is passed on to the next fastest lap or if it is just voided. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think Ingram
weird
would
one.
get it.
You'd think so, yeah. So basically, the championship remains with Sutton at the top and Ingram just behind him because they're matching each other. They're both doing an amazing job, but
Mhm.
yeah, Ingram a bit fortunate and also, but did fight back in the end here. Dolan another good result with eighth. Rainford recovered all the way to ninth.
Yeah.
Osborne in 10th. I think he did miss the chicane at one point. Finn Leslie in 12th, so points on debut, but a lot of DNFs right at the bottom.
Yes, but regardless, he handled himself very well this weekend, I think, because
Tricky conditions.
he wasn't involved in any stupid moments or anything like that. He had pace, um, certainly lower to mid level pace of the grid, and it was his first outing, and I'm very impressed by him. And if Pearson can't continue the season, I hope he continues. But I also would love to see Ronan back, so I think he's a very good driver.
Same. Yeah, same. It's conflicting, isn't it? I mean, do we do an update for a particular driver in this race? We've already said it, but
Well, yeah, Hall Watch was, yeah, he ended up in a beach,
oh
unfortunately.
dear.
So, yeah, another DNF, no points. He got no points all weekend.
Yeah, so as we've said, it's Ingram Sutton at the top. But I've got a theory.
Oh,
No one else has got a chance at the championship now.
well, as I always say, we're only halfway through the championship. Anything can happen, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I know. Normally, but there's 62 points between second and third. When
Yeah,
was the last time that happened? I mean, I should have researched it beforehand, but that's mad.
the only way people are getting back into this championship is Sutton and Ingram clashing
Now,
and
that
taking each other out.
I would like to see
Yes.
because it's all been a bit polite at the minute, and especially with this. Well, now it's not all of a sudden because we've got drivers clearly say, like Shedden and Hill being vocal in interviews about performance in a straight line, and
Mhm.
we've got this change to four cars splitter arrangements.
Yes. We'll have to see
So
what that
it's
does.
all getting a bit fighty, and I'd love to see a bit of angst. Not Soper Bennett, because that went a bit too far, but and sometimes Plato O'Neill. But a little rubbing, a little bit of needle, some strained words in interviews. That will make it all the more better because they've gone. Like
Yeah.
62 points over Camish. Forget it.
Yeah, that is it, unfortunately. I have to say as well that Jake Hill still being in fifth is pretty impressive, to be honest, considering he
Yeah.
had the one good weekend at Brands that all the BMWs had. Um, but how he's managed to keep that car in fifth is pretty damn good. And also
Yeah.
just the fact that the three Nappas are in the top four, when the Hyundai is clearly the better car.
I think I agree with you. I think the Hyundai does have an advantage. And I think Morgan and Chilton, there's something about them where they're just not focused enough, and then they make a silly mistake when they're in a
Yeah,
good position, either they're qualifying or a race, and they've not maximized their car advantage.
as I say, for me, I've, I've said it for quite a long time. I do not rate Adam Morgan, but I still cannot tell you why. There's just
Well,
something
he
about
spun on
him.
his own in qualifying here, spun on his own in qualifying at Thruxton. He threw it away on the grass in a race at Thruxton. Those are
Yeah,
some valid reasons recently.
yes.
But
I
then he'll have a
just
good
because
race.
he has pace, he's a race winner.
Yeah.
Um, but there's just something about him. I don't feel that given the right car at all, he's never going to be a championship challenger.
This is going to sound very harsh, but I would, what would someone like Doble or Cook do in one of those Hyundais? I'd love to see that.
Yes.
Because also we have to say that while those cars are preeminent, there's Ingram's still doing an amazing job because he's clearly thrashing his teammates.
He is the Max Verstappen of the touring cars. Is that what you're saying? Only he can drive that car.
Well, he angers me sometimes as much as Max Verstappen because he put up a YouTube
Yes.
video called Podiumy recently,
Yes.
which is just disgusting, frankly.
Yeah. He's very strange, Tom Ingram, because he's a very likable character,
Yeah, I don't actually hate him, by the way. Just
while
put that out
also being eminently punchable.
there. Yeah.
That's how I
Yes,
would
and we don't know
describe
him
it.
personally. I'm sure you're a very nice person. I'm very sorry,
Yes.
Tom. But at the same time, there's some of you don't help yourself sometimes with the expressions and the way you conduct an interview in a Plato-esque manner.
Yeah.
But without the lewd jokes, which I'm fine with.
True.
Yeah. And then in the team's points, again, talking about Ingram being dominant within his team, Alliance Ford are leading the constructors and Napa the teams. You've got Smiley doing an amazing job despite a retirement here to keep the independence lead, although the gap has shrunk to Cook.
Hmm.
Doble's dropped away a bit because bit of he had two average-ish results and then a retirement. Restart still leading independence. And De Leon, for all his taps, is leading the Jack Sears ahead of Rainford, which is quite
Yes.
close. And Wingfoot is no longer led by Camish, it's Ingram.
Oh, yes, I didn't even notice that. Um, yeah, and that is the important one. Who's
That
leading
is
the
the
wing foot?
important one.
To be fair, I
Um,
can't believe Camish has been on top as long as he has.
yeah.
Not that he's not a good driver. I just mean that
No,
that
no.
Hyundai seems so much quicker at times.
Well,
The one that I found quite interesting just now is thinking how well I think James Dorling's been driving over the last few races. He's still in 18th in the championship.
he's doing well, but then
Hmm.
like at Thruxton, mechanical issues put him down the order, and
Yeah,
he's
it's
not
just
consistently up there. But he's doing a very good job. Also, like in qualifying, he qualifies well, but then drop back in that first race.
hmm. Yeah, I feel like he's going to shoot up the order as well. I'm getting at. I think he's a top 10 contender for the championship this season.
Could get a podium, and that'll help sway things, won't it?
Hmm.
Basically, he's almost qualifying too well. He needs to be in a position to be in the reverse grid draw,
Yeah, because he nearly
and then he
did, didn't
could
he?
actually win it.
What was the race? He actually was the reverse grid draw, but someone
I
got
think it was
disqualified.
Thruxton. I
Yeah.
can't remember now. Yeah, oh, yeah. There was some mix around, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Mm. Anyway, we've gone long on this podcast. The next one is Croft, so we've got the quote unquote summer break, but a lot of the drivers will be at Goodwood doing stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a British Grand Prix. Is there a Grand Prix this weekend at the time of recording?
This is Austria, isn't it? I
Austria.
believe.
So we'll
I
cover
think it's
that.
this weekend.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. It is this weekend and it is Red Bull Ring.
Hmm.
Anything else you'd like to say about the touring cars?
It was just an enjoyable weekend to watch. There was lots of incidents, not all of them good, but there was action all down the grid. And a little bit of rain always spices things up. I don't like it when the whole weekend is wet, but a little bit of rain in one of the races is always exciting.
I agree. It was actually a really good weekend, and we didn't really touch upon it enough, so we'll do it now to wrap up. But congratulations on Gordon Shedden for winning a race for the first time in a couple of years since he's come back.
Yes, which is something I think we all expected him to do at some point this year.
Yes.
But at the start of the season, we expect him to do it on pace, whereas it's purely going to be reverse grids at the moment.
I think if we actually look at Huff's performances last year, that was a bellwether for the Toyota this season, which was
Yeah.
he could get reverse grid wins, but not outright race one or race two wins.
Yeah.
And that seems to be borne true with Shedden so far. But hopefully that's a confidence boost. He said in the interview, like in one of the interviews I saw on the BTCC Instagram, I think, which was, yeah, it's a great confidence boost for the team.
Mhm.
And we're heading in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Yes, I haven't been following that lately, annoyingly. I have had to unfollow the BTCC Instagram purely because I keep bloody looking at it when I haven't seen the race results or anything like that.
Yes, this is a big thing. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've had to do that.
I don't follow Formula One on Instagram just for that reason alone.
Yes, because they do some very good content, I should say, on the BTCC Instagram.
Much better
Some of the
now.
stuff that comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll have a dedicated social interview in vertical format on the story within the same day, which
Yeah.
unheard of in past times. So that's wonderful. Yeah, keep it going. I'm liking what they're doing on YouTube more. I saw some comments bemoaning it, but I think they're wrong. I think they're doing a lot with a very small team and a very small budget. So
Yes.
it's better than nothing. So keep it going. Okay, dokes. Right, we'll speak again after the Red Bull Austrian race. Who knows when Colin's back? He might not be back for that one either.
No, exactly. Just sodding off to other countries.
But we hope you have a good time, Colin. No idea when this will be edited or uploaded either, so you might be listening to this many, many weeks after it was
Yes.
first recorded. But anyway, thank you for listening. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, leave us a star rating and review if you liked it. If you didn't, we're very sorry, but you shouldn't have been listening this far into the episode. All right.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And now we're going to have an edit point because I can't remember what happens next.